Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be doing a key opening for the new Mythic of Tian Yi. He's in Glory Gem Guild and VIP chest for this week, and then he'll be in a drop table with everything else, but at this current moment in time, he's the only Mythic within those drop tables. So if you want to get him, this is the time to get him. If you have about more than half the Mythics, you'd want to get him regardless. He's an okay troop. He has a triple stun, as well as functions very similarly to that of a Ketris, except that he can't get higher damage. He can only double his damage, but still ends up doing full damage to one troop and doing half to the two adjacents. They'll be doing a key opening for him. Also, I'm briefly going and showing a team for him as well. And I'm also briefly going to be going over trying to get a bunch of openings or a bunch of shard opening for the new faction. We did end up getting a new faction as well today too. This faction ended up bringing in technically the bleed mechanic, even though we already had it on things like Magnus and stuff for about 2 patches now. This is the first instance of them having a 100% chance, and we finally got a viable bleed troop. So just wanted to show bleed off real quick with that. But anyways, let's go do the key opening now. But first, before I do actually, let me go show the troop real quick. As I just mentioned, he is a red, yellow, blue. This coloration already exists on Champion of Anu, but he could be a good replacement since Champion of Anu isn't really the greatest for a lot of stuff. This thing, as I mentioned, does same kind of damage as Ketris, deals damage to a single target and then half to adjacents. It stuns all 3 of them, or wherever it ends up hitting. It does 2 times the damage if it has a higher attack, and then summons 1 to 3 Monkey Disciples, which is probably one of its unique things that could make it viable for some stuff, given that summon is sometimes important. Monkey Disciple ends up doing an HP gain into a yellow-red creation of gems, which is exactly the color he needs, so it somewhat works for that. The biggest issue it really has is its traits are rather underwhelming for a Mythic. It only steals 1 magic at the start of every single turn from the first enemy, which is very, very small. It has Jinx, which is okay, and it has Agile, which is okay. Nothing really too special. Pretty average overall across the line. Ketris in most instances is going to be more useful to this thing, though it could be a okay alternative in some certain circumstances, particularly instances where you specifically need a stun, as well as it could be better in Wild Folk or Mystic teams. Anyways, let's go do the key opening and try to get this guy. As I mentioned, he's in Glory Gem Guild and VIP chest, so we're mainly going to be opening up gem keys, and I guess we'll do it 50 at a time just so it takes a little bit longer. Apparently, I randomly got a legendary task today to go open, I guess, 3 gem keys, because I believe that's the one that ends up giving 10. So really lucky with that. We just got free 10 gems for doing nothing other than what we were already planning on doing. So let's see. Let's try keeping track. 150, 200. This better not take too much. Okay, there we go. Well, we got it in the first 200. That was exceptionally quick. Would normally take around like, what, 800,000 or so. But yeah, there he is. We'll go get him upgraded in a moment. But before we do, and go and use him, I do want to go and open a bunch of stuff. Don't ever buy these. Actually, with that being said, with that thing popping up, there is an offer that is somewhat worth it. They have this thing. They've been doing like these flash offers a lot this year. It looks like they're starting it up. It seems to be their way of making more revenue, and most of them aren't too bad. The first one was actually really good when they gave 100 gems for $2. The second one was questionable if it was good or not, where they gave a orange orb and 100 gems for $5. And now here's basically just the pure gems for 200. Or $5 for 200 gems. This is slightly less than the first offer and is also slightly less than daily gems. Daily gems ends up giving 225 gems over the course of 15 days. This gives you 200 gems, which is 25 less, but it gives it all instantly for the same price. Not sure why they keep doing these value things, because if you actually look at $20 value, it's actually less than $20 value, because for $20 you could technically get 240 gems. Of course, it's only $5, but still, those are really misleading. And I don't know why they keep doing it. But anyways, that's still not too bad if you are in a pinch for gems. $5 for 200 is still pretty decent value, unless you have like a high VIP or something. If you're newer to the game, it could be a good time to just pick up a few. But yeah, they have that going on if you want it. Don't do the other offer though. These are a complete waste. You could basically just do that manually within like a few hours. Doesn't take that long at all. Anyways, let's go and go to the Underworld. I do want to go over everything with this faction just ever so briefly in this video. I will be covering it extensively in streams and stuff. But anyways, as far as this thing, so faction. We have this faction event. The weapon is rather useless, but you'd still probably want to pick it up just to have it. It's the only weapon that has bleed currently. Where's the weapon? Where'd it go? But yeah, it doesn't have anything good for its perks. Not even going to bother showing it because they're so ridiculously bad. It's just a pretty underwhelming weapon for the most part. It does have a double bleed, but there's better bleed options with what they just added through the faction itself. Still gives the same rewards as always. As far as the pathing, it is probably the simplest delve they've ever added as far as pathing, in that it's pretty straightforward what you have to do, because you only really have one choice for the most part. You do first room, second room, third room, fourth room, then you take the tier 5, which you have to do if you want to go for those. Then you're most likely going to take this tier 5, because it's most likely going to be higher than a tier 2. Actually, it has to be. A tier 2 can only be 1.2, and a tier 5 at lowest is a 1.2. So, yeah, super straightforward. Actually, I didn't even think about that. But yeah, you just do first room, second room, third room, fourth room, fifth, fourth, second, and then do boss room. And that's the order 100% of the time, oddly enough. Unless one of these randomly becomes a treasure room. But then again, even then, you want to save treasure rooms for last. So, I wonder if that's 100% treasure room. I'm actually not sure. Both of these are actually treasure room right now, which is definitely not too bad. I don't know if it's a percent chance or not, because I haven't had the chance to do these yet. But, yeah, that seems like the order then. You would just go all the way across this loop, go all the way there, take that one, take final boss room, and just repeat, and rinse and repeat, and do that over and over again. So really straightforward delve for once, and it has a pretty cool design too, how they end up doing it. But anyway, let's go open some shards and then do some teams. So of course, if you saved up shards, you can easily do this. Even if you haven't, you can easily just get them during the event. And they added quite a few good things. We didn't get the legend yet though, but let's go over all three of these real quick. All of these do have 100% chance to bleed. The first instances of it. As far as the bleed mechanic, since it hasn't really been available much, basically what it does is it places a little bleed mark onto the enemy, and it does a bunch of true damage to them per turn. It can go up to 4 stacks, 1, 2, 3, and 4 stacks. 1 stack does 1 true damage, 2 stack does 3 true damage, 3 stack does 6 true damage, and, or wait, is it 6 or 7? I actually didn't bother looking that up yet to double check. It's either 6 or 7. And a 4 stack does 10 true damage per turn, and obviously more often than not, if you just keep spamming it, you're going to get it to 10, and as easily get 10 damage, true damage per turn to the enemy. It can be cleansed by normal means, as well as just from the 10% chance per turn, so do be wary of that, but spam bleed could potentially be a pretty decent mechanic. So let's go over these in order of worst to best. Worst being this guy, well, not necessarily worst. He creates 6 skulls boosted by bleeding enemies. That could be a total potentially of 14 skulls, since you get 2 per each, and it then inflicts bleed onto a random enemy. This could be okay as a early game skull spam troop. Skeleton is normally used for that purpose, but you could also use this with a skeleton. So it's basically just another option to bring skulls into early game into a viable way. So this will be useful, but probably just to newer players. I don't really foresee myself using it much in late game, especially with how dependent it is on bleed, and at that point you might as well just be using a true damage team. Next one, which is also still somewhat bad, is the Shaman of, or what is that? Shaman of Set, or Set, however you pronounce that. Choose a color, and then it creates red equal to that number. So, for example, if you end up choosing brown, and there's 10 browns on the board, it's only going to end up creating 10 red, and then inflicts bleed onto a random enemy. This will probably not be as good, because you could just use the trolls for that, like Flame Troll for doubling red. You can use Hellcat. I feel like there's many other options out there that are going to be better than this, given that it's a gem spawn. It's going to be a lot more inconsistent at actually landing those reds, and it doesn't really have any perks that are going to be really noteworthy. One thing to mention is every single one of these 4 troops that come in through this faction do have inflict bleed whenever they do skull damage. All 4 of them have that, so that's a pretty interesting mechanic. So the 2 that are actually viable is, oddly enough, the lowest rarity here, the rare, and of course the legend from this faction. So as far as the rare, we have the Horned Asp. It deals splash damage to a single enemy, so it hits one and then does half damage to the adjacents. And then it inflicts both bleed and poison on all the enemies hit, meaning it's doing 3 bleeds and 3 poisons every single time it casts. That is insanely good. It's only 11 mana cost. It's probably going to be a Miststalker alternative for early game. Well, Miststalker is an early game troop, but you know, using this instead, it is insanely good value for only 11 mana cost, and that's going to be a lot of damage in early game too. One other pretty noteworthy thing is it's going to be kind of what, oh, what's that one troop name? Oh, I completely forgot his name because he's so irrelevant. Scale Guard. The Scale Guard red troop that used to have Empowered, that they then removed down to 75% from the Mist the Scales kingdom. That's basically what this thing's going to be like now, except even better. It's a 75% mana start, so not Empowered. They kind of learned their lesson from giving Empowered to the other troop. But it's a 75% mana start, still insanely good, and it gets a lot of value. Basically, you're just going to keep spamming this. You could legitimately just put 2 or 3 of these into a team, put a mana generator into the team, and boom, you got yourself an early game team. You could even literally just go 4 of these if you truly wanted to, though that would probably be a little bit of a waste. But yeah, it's going to be really, really strong, particularly in early game, because of course poison and bleed and any kind of stats effect like that is better the earlier on in the game you are, simply because the damage does not upscale into late game or higher stats. But yeah, poison is a 50% chance per turn to do 1 true damage, and the bleed will either be doing 1, 3, 7, or the 10. So it just keeps going higher and higher the bigger you get the bleed stack, and with multiple on the team, you're easily going to be able to get the bleed stacks up to the higher amounts. So yeah, going to be pretty strong. Other than that, we have the Legend, which we'll hopefully get. I need at least 2 copies of him because I need that for the team. I want to go show real quick. Well, we got a Genie Lamp, not the Legend I'm looking for. Come on, we know you're in there. There we go, we got 1. So let me go over this thing real quick. So this is the biggest thing that actually got released today. Probably the most viable thing. So much so, it's probably better than the Mythic we just got, oddly enough. So definitely try picking him up. Doesn't take that many shards. You'd easily get one within 1,000 shards, most likely, from throwing it on the new faction. It gives a bunch of attack to itself and all allies below. So if it's in first slot, it's giving it to your entire team. So very much like a Luther or something like that, where you put it in first slot and you just get a bunch of attack for your team. Except it's more of a late game version of it, or mid to late game. Well, you can also use it in early game too. You just need to make sure you get it traded. And then it explodes a row. Exploding a row is pretty good. I believe this was originally going to be 16 mana cost, but they lowered it down to 13, which is quite surprising that it has explode a row. I believe it's the cheapest mana cost troop that actually has a explode a row or a column, if I'm not mistaken. So that's actually pretty noteworthy, as you can gain a decent amount of mana from exploding a row. And you can also chain that into getting a cascade if there's something visible. You can't do that with a column, but you can do that with a row because it's visible in sight what it will be. So if there's a 3 gap between the vertical column, you'd be able to see where you'd get your extra turn, or at least a 3, so that you get a little bit of extra mana. But where it really comes through is not necessarily his ability, but what his traits are. All 3 of them are pretty decent, particularly the final 2. He inflicts bleed whenever he does skull damage, just like everything else in his faction, which isn't horrible in itself. Great way to keep refreshing bleed, particularly on the first troop. Other than that, it has a 50% skull reduction, so similar to what Corvash used to be and stuff like that, where you just use it up front and just use it as a proper tank. And the most important thing about this troop, and what makes it potentially insanely good, is it inflicts bleed on a random enemy every single time you take a red. So you'll be able to basically get 4 stacked bleeds on the entire line of your enemy. And yeah, that's 10 true damage per turn, which is, well, a lot of damage per turn, especially the earlier you are in the game. That's insanely good value in the early game. So yeah, go get that thing fully traded if you're like under level 500 or something, as that's going to be very, very good. And if not, just use Horned Asps, because those things are also pretty good. Let's see, can we get 1 more Legends? We know you're in there. We have enough shards, that's for sure. It does not want to give me another one. I do need at least 1 more, so I could show double bleed, just so we can show bleed off a little bit more. No, that's not the Legend I want. So that's still nice, because I do need better treasure. There we go. Okay, we got a second one. And we'll open the rest later. But anyways, let's go show some teams now that we have everything that we need. Also need to go upgrade them real quick. But anyways, into battle. Not that. I was just using that to clear out the quest line real quick. So I guess we'll start with this one, and then we'll go and do the Mythic one. But first, let's go upgrade both of them. So just type in bleed. Oops, I have it still in Wild Folk. That's why it's not coming up. So let's go get this guy upgraded all the way to max. Let's see, what do we need for that? We need... Yeah, we'll just trade it manually. We'll do both manually. We'll get all his traits that he needs. We'll get all the leveling that he needs. Get that all the way to max. Okay, so let's go use this guy. He now has his bleed mechanic. He has his stone skin. I'm actually putting him in the back. Normally, you wouldn't do this if you were to do it in a normal team. You'd most likely just put it in a first slot, but I just mainly wanted to do it in this particular team with Alchemist Moneylender, just to show the bleed mechanic. You probably wouldn't use this as a natural team, but I just want to show off what it could do. He does have Herdmaster, so you know what? I'm actually going to go try finding a different battle real quick, mainly because I don't want to deal with any cleanse, just so I could show bleed properly. There we go. There's a he has Impervious on one, though. Let's try to find one that has no immune, as well as... Nope, he has immune on the one. No immunes, as well as no cleanse, and I think we found one. Yeah, none of you have immune, and none that has cleanse, right? Yeah, none of that's cleanse. So, let's go get a bunch of bleed on this. We'll also get to finally see what a 3-stack is. I keep forgetting if it's 6 or 7. Need to double check. It's not that important, though. More often than not, you're going to be trying to rush it to 10 anyways, so... You might have it on like 3 for like 1 single turn. So right there, as you can see, we took some reds and we got 2 bleeds down. Every single time we take a red, both of them will trigger. They do stack, so that's nice. We'll just take this onto the purple there, and just keep spamming our red ability now. We don't even need to use his actual ability. Unfortunately, it has no board... Oh, actually, never mind. It does have board control. It doesn't have a easy way of gaining extra turn, but it technically does. Like, for example, right here, we could try using it all the way at the top here, and these 2 greens could potentially get an extra turn if 2 or 3 greens were to fall on top of them. But it's very unlikely, more often than not, that he'll be landing an extra turn. It's relatively hard to do so, since you need a pretty big gap between the gems on the board. Anyways, let me go use all these reds. That will give us a bunch more bleed. As you can see, we have a 1, a 2, and a 1. None of these are doing damage initially, just because the turn actually has to pass before it does damage. But basically what I'm going to do here is just get like a bunch of 4 and 3 stacks onto everything, just so that we can do that damage once our turn passes. So we're just going to keep doing this until everything has a decent amount of marks. And as you can see, we end up doing all of our true damage for that per turn. Oh no! He actually got a kill off of Skull Spam! So we're gonna just randomly lose this now. That's funny. Well, I guess technically we could just keep attack buffing them now, but that ruins our whole plan. But at least we can easily see what this bleed does now. So how much damage is this? Let's see. It is 6, not 7. Okay, it's 6 damage at 3 stacks. But anyways, let's go restart this, because that's gonna fail now if we don't have our loop. Let's try doing it with something a little bit weaker, because I'm just trying to show this thing's bleed more so than anything. More so to 10 damage per turn. Obviously, you wouldn't realistically do it in this team. I'm just trying to show off the bleeds. But anyways, oh, he got a frozen on first turn. Of course, he'd be using Frost Mage. We're going to take it that way just so we get full mana. You actually don't generally take 4 times when you're frozen, because you're going to guarantee lose it. It's actually better to take the 3 and try for the Surge, because more often than not, it will give you more mana. There's a chance it will give you less, but as long as you have over a 50% Surge chance, it's normally worth, if you're frozen, to go for the 3 instead of the 4. Anyways, we need to keep passing turns until something happens here. We don't even have a good Alchemist to use here either. Wow. Wow, this board is awful. But let's go do that on some browns there. Get her a little bit of mana that we need. He has the Skull there. No point in casting because, yeah, we're kind of frozen at the moment. That will go off in a soon. But it's still not out yet. I guess we could technically do an attack buff, but he doesn't even gain anything out of it. So let's pass our turn, I guess, with a blue. Start moving things. So let's move more on the board too, which we actually need at this point, just to get it a little bit better. I like how he's almost going to kill us with a useless troop. Well, we still keep getting those small amount of bleeds. He just wants to stay frozen forever, apparently, and does not want to get unfrozen for us. There we go. Okay, so we don't really have a proper board to do anything with yet, but let's go throw an Alchemist down. That'll give us all the gold we need for him. Give us a slightly better board, and that better not die. So we'll go throw this down, and now we can finally start getting our bleed loop going. So, nope, never mind. We don't have good alignment for that. We'll move that over. Still don't have a good Alchemist cast. Obviously, we do not want to get rid of red, so we can't do that. Let's take our brown for now and then throw the whole Moneylender. Oops, I forgot to take that 1 red, but so did he. So we'll just do that again, get another Moneylender, start getting the 4 stacks up so we can actually do a decent amount of true damage per turn. We'll do that on purple right there just to get all that converted. Another Moneylender, get more bleeds on. So we got 3 4s and a 3. So now is perfectly time to go end our turn if we want to go do so. And yes, now we have 4 on everything. So as you'll see right here, we will... Oh, let me take that one last extra turn. We'll do 4... apparently another extra turn. It just does not want to stop giving us extra turns. But we'll do 4 true damage to his entire team right here. So we'll just go do this, get our attack buff real quick. Doesn't matter too much where we do this. And 10 true damage to everything. So, yeah, pretty nice. And we can keep using these bleeds to keep refreshing the fact that he's bled. So this will just keep refreshing it so it's never going to cleanse off. And, yeah, we basically just perpetually have a 10 true damage per turn damage source to their entire team. Takes quite a bit of setup with some various teams, but as long as you have any kind of extra turn set up, it's going to get at least some amount of bleeds, and that's just going to start chipping them down slowly over time. So an interesting mechanic. I'm not sure exactly what it might actually be used in other than various true damage teams. As far as him himself, he's a rather average kind of way of doing it. I feel like they might add something that's a little bit better in the future to be able to place it, but currently as it stands, that rare and that legend are the 2 best ways of placing bleed. So trying to build around those are going to be your best, most viable way of placing bleed. Anyways, let's go show the new Mythic real quick. So, new Mythic. It is not that. Let's go get him in. Let's see. We need to go and it's actually on Wild Folk right now. So let's see if I can remember his name. So Tian Yi. Let's just go upgrade him real quick. We'll go do it with. I guess we'll do it with orbs because I have such an excess of orbs right now that I might as well. So yeah, we'll go do it for both these 2 traits. We'll go use our orange orbs that we've somehow accumulated over 100 of. So time to start using some of those instead of using the larger ones. And we'll use the larger greens to get them fully leveled. And there we go. Just save us on some resources there. But anyways, let's go use this guy. Let me actually put him into the team. That might help. So we're using it with Bard. I am using it with Flame of Fur. You could use it if you don't have Flame of Fur, of course, with Mountain Crusher. You can use Black Manacles there. You can use... Actually, those are the main two. Mountain Crusher, Black Manacles, and Flame of Fur are the main ones. Ideally, Flame of Fur if you have it, because this allows you to do a pure yellow team, which means you could even use this for Yellow Guild War if you really want to. There's better options out there, but this is something you could technically use. Wild Folk in the past have not really been too good. They're probably still getting a rework in the future that's going to be making them even better, particularly in Pan's Veil. But overall, they've been getting better over time, and this Mythic helps with that. And Luna, oddly enough, helps with that as well. This was something that was added in the previous faction, and she does count as a Wild Folk. The reason why this is important is King Salinas gives 50% mana start to all Wild Folk, which includes Luna, which includes the new Mythic, and it also includes our hero, which is currently set as a Bard. And the benefit from that is that we do gain, or the biggest thing with Bard that would end up ever using it for, is the +1 to all yellow troops per turn. So this will help him gain his attack he needs. It helps him gain the magic that he needs. The attack he needs in order to do 2 times damage. The magic he needs in order to do more damage in general. Because he's not like a Ketris where he can boost from any stat. He does specifically need magic in order to increase his damage. Him having higher attack only gives him more damage if it's higher than the enemy, but it doesn't matter how much higher. If he has 47 attack and the enemy has 46, it makes no difference compared to if he had 100 attack or 1,000 attack and they had 46. The amount of difference doesn't make any difference. It just matters that he has higher attack. In this particular instance, it looks like we'll have higher attack than everything, even without Bard's benefit. So he'll also be gaining 2 magic per turn here. He gains 1 from the magic that he steals every turn, including the very first turn it should trigger. We should see a magic reduction. Yeah, right there. You saw the magic reduction of the red. And I was going to go look at its ability, but I forgot to gain some. But you saw a little red thing there, and that ends up producing its magic. And does that at the start of every turn, including right at the beginning. So he's gaining 2 magic per turn. You'll see it's 23 right now, and it'll go up to 25 on our next turn. You can also see that we're getting Explosion every single time. We're getting that specifically from Luna. Whenever we take a yellow, our banner's currently set to +2 yellow as well. But whenever we take a yellow, we end up exploding a yellow gem. And yeah, that works out pretty conveniently because of our yellow dependency with this team. And as I mentioned, he now has 25 magic, up from 23, and next turn it'll be 27, which just keeps raising the amount of damage that he'll end up doing. Wow, his damage is a lot lower than I thought it was. That's only 60 damage with half 2 adjacents. I was actually expecting that to be a little bit better than that. Wow, that is bad. Yeah. Well, that's him. Yeah, he is quite underwhelming, but he does get that triple stun. You really need to get value out of that stun if you want to use him, though. Gosh. Yeah, that's actually a little bit worse than I thought. I was expecting him to do a little bit more damage than that. Overall, I guess that's still an okay amount of damage. It's especially once you keep getting the stats up. But I don't know. I guess you'd maybe throw him in a Wild Folk team occasionally. Wild Folks, I don't believe, have any stun other than him, or at least no viable stun. So at least that adds that for that specific typing. But overall, no, it does seem a little pretty underwhelming, as I thought he would be. But we'll just take our skull there. It's stunned. So hey, we actually did get to use that stun. That trip normally has a 40% chance to dodge, and we just hit it with a skull at a 100% chance of hitting because it was stunned. So I guess we did get some amount of value out of it, if nothing else. But I can't even kill that. It's only... Oh, yes, I can. Never mind. Duh, it's double. I keep forgetting that. Never mind. It's a little bit better then. It's still weaker than what a Ketris would normally be. So this is what? That is a 42, in that it will do that to the adjacent. So I do have to specifically target it. But it is 84 specifically to the target here. So we'll do that. Get our damage there. As you can see, it does 42 to him because it does half to the adjacents. But it does do the full amount of double that to whatever we hit, assuming our attack is higher. But our attack is higher this entire time. But still, that's a rather underwhelming amount of damage. Because you can't play it like a Ketris in that you cast second slot, cast 4 slot, take a skull, and then you win. You cannot necessarily play him like that. If you're fighting really weak battles, you can still play it like that. But more often than not, especially in late game, you're not going to be able to get away with that with stuff that has higher stats. He's also going to be really bad against anything in general that has higher stats, unlike a Ketris where you might be able to use it with stuff where you use like Yasmin's Pride or something like that to go give a bunch of HP to him, or something else where you can actually fight higher stats troops. He's only going to really be used maybe in PvP, class event, and some other instances where you can specifically fight stuff somewhat near your stat line. When you're starting to fight things like 2 times, 3 times, 4 times higher your stats are higher than that, he's going to be pretty underwhelming. But we'll go get his ability again, go feed him a bunch of reds. Actually, he might not even get his ability up. We'll go take our browns over. He'll just die out. We'll get another little poke on there, get the reds, and it looks like we'll get one last finish with him. And I guess we'll just use it one more time. But yeah, as far as this Mythic, as far as first impressions, it's okay. I would say it's ever so slightly above average just because I feel like it will have some okay team synergies in the future. But it's definitely one of the not necessarily worth going for kind of mythics. It's not something you would really go out of your way for. Very few instances would actually end up using him, and overall just not really something you would bother with most of the time. But if nothing else, if Wild Folk teams get a little bit better than this, they're already starting to get actually pretty decent. He could become a little bit more viable in that. Also, there's a whole aspect of his ability that we're not really using either, and that's the fact that he summons, which could be pretty convenient for class events or anywhere where it's really important that you have your teams alive, like all the troops on your team. Maybe even like low-level to mid-level delves as well. That could be okay for. Definitely not high-level delves. He'll fall apart in that. But I don't know. That's a whole mechanic too that we're not really using. We basically have infinite summons over and over again off of that, so it's a nice little extra benefit. Not one you'd really use most of the time, though. But anyways, so we do have higher attack here, so that will do twice the damage. So that's going to be what? That's going to be 56 damage and then 22 to 2 adjacents. That's still very low. Oh, especially since he has double stealthy in the middle, preventing us from hitting proper targets. But now that we stunned that, I guess that is one slight benefit that we do get from him. Now that we got the proper stun, we are now able to go and hit that specifically, now that it's stunned, and go get that hit. We wouldn't have been able to do that previously because it would have had stealthy, which would have prevented us from being able to do this. We would not have been able to target that, and now we can also target this, now that it's stunned it. So I guess that's a kind of an example of where it can somewhat be used. But yeah, unless you're really getting value out of that stun, it is just not really worth bringing out. You really have to be using his stun and possibly even his summon to really get full value out of what he is supposed to be doing. But anyways, let's go get this cast down. Looks like we got another stun on it. It looks like a stun disease off of that cast right there. There's 1 to 2 random positive or negative stats effect, either positive to us or negative to them. So apparently we got more stun to go with our stuns. But we'll go get another hit here. Looks like we'll be able to do it on that, assuming it stays stunned, hopefully. Does it stay stunned? Yes, it does. So we can just go for that and wipe out this team unless he infinitely loops us. Which is definitely possible. He is using goblins, after all. We could lose any second. Oh, he did get a triple barrier right there. The easiest way to go deal with that, I guess, is just to go use a King Salinas to go hit all of them. And then clear it out with the Mythic for the 46, or for the 86 damage. And hey, look, we did get to use the summon. So, of course, it creates the Monkey Disciple. It doesn't get to start with any amount of mana, but he does create a bunch of yellow and red and gives it a little bit of heal. So it could be an easy way to just kind of stay alive, since it will help you stay alive with the durability that it gives off the HP, as well as just meat shielding as a additional troop. But anyways, guys, that's everything that I wanted to go over for now. We'll be going over more teams with it into the future, as well as for both the Delve and the new Mythic itself. I'll be going over that as well in streams. I'll be streaming today and tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for a few hours, as well as, of course, we stream every single night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Best of luck with opening your Glory Gem and Guild and VIP keys if you're going to be trying for the new Mythic, and I will catch you all later. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching.